So they used this guy, I think his name was Massey, as bait. The stranded, Massey was like one of the top, like the main, like the boss of the stranded. And the stranded want him back. They're like, you guys gotta give us back Massey. And if you guys give him back, we'll leave you guys alone. So they're trying to make a truce. Michelson, the guy from the Navy, Bernie, and Delta, basically, they go out on a ship in the ocean to meet the stranded and do the give them Massey. So they've got Massey on the ship tied up, and they're like, okay, well, let's see if we could do this, right? But Michelson is like, we're just gonna say that we're not gonna do anything to them. We're gonna give them Massey. They stay away from us. We stay away from them. But then Michelson was like, later we'll just go over there and kill them all. So they're doing that, and Bernie's trying to, like, you know, come into terms that this guy is going to go free again, and she's just like, it's okay, it's for the benefit of all of us, and blah, blah, blah. But it turns out the ship that shows up, the stranded ship that shows up, is another dude. And they're like, wait, this isn't the guy that we were going to meet with. And they call Massey, and they're like, who's that guy? And Massey's like, oh my god, no. Don't give me to them. And he's like, who is that? And they're like, it's another stranded gang. Like a stranded gang that wants Massey dead. And they, when Massey's guys were coming, that stranded gang took over the other guys. Like, they killed them. They attacked them. And now that gang is coming to get Massey. And Massey's like, no, don't give me to them. And Michelson's like, well, he's like, what will you guys do for us if we give you Massey? Because they really want to kill Massey. And the stranded gang boss is like, we'll leave you guys alone. You know, we'll do. He's like, we're not pirates. We're vigilantes on our side. You know, we've gotta fend for ourselves. Just like you guys. We'll be on, you know, we'll stay on our side, and you guys stay on your side, and that's it. And Michelson's like, okay, it sounds like a deal. And they give him Massey, and Massey's like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. And they start torturing him on the other ship. They could hear him screaming. And Bernie's just like, so they're like, okay, bye. And the stranded ship starts leaving. And Michelson is like, well, you know, later, he tells his submarine, because the submarine is underwater, watching the whole thing, without the stranded knowing, because they didn't know the sub was there. And Michelson tells the guy from the sub, he's like, follow them and go see where their camp is, because later we're going to go and kill them. And the sub starts following him, and the sub's like, I'm hearing something. I'm hearing something coming. I don't know what it is. And they're like, and Marcus is like, man, I hope it's not a Leviathan. And the Leviathans are those big fishes, big, huge fishes, like freaking whale that could eat a freaking city. It was the one that came out in Gears of War 2. Remember where you had to go into his freaking mouth and like shoot the tentacles in his mouth? When you were in the Locust, when you were going to the Locust stronghold, with you, when it was you and Dom, that thing, that's a Leviathan. And Marcus was like, oh my god, I hope it's not a Leviathan, because Leviathans could have drained out of the Locust tunnels when they sunk Jacinto. And they're worried that it was going to be a Leviathan, and they could see the boat, the stranded boat, leaving. It was like disappearing, and all of a sudden the sub is like, oh my god, it's a torpedo, and they're like, what? And they're like, oh, they thought that the sub had shot a torpedo by accident. But the sub was like, we didn't do it. We didn't shoot it. And the torpedo passes them, and it just blows up the stranded ship. And it was the stranded ship, and there were little ships, little like boats, for following that big ship of the stranded. So when the big ship blows up, those little boats were like, you son of a bastards, you said you weren't gonna kill us and all this stuff, and they're like, this is war. And Michelson's like, it wasn't us. And they don't believe him. The Stranger's like, this is freaking war. You guys are going down. And they leave. And Michelson's like, what the hell just happened? And the sub is like, there's another sub. There's another sub. And he's like, what? And another sub surfaces. And it looks different. It doesn't look like their subs. And they're like, oh my god, it's the Gasnie. The Gasnie are part of the UIR. The Indies, the other side. Remember the Pendulum Wars? The war before the Locusts? The one that lasted like 80 years? It was against the UIR and the COG. The Gasnie were one of the areas in the UIR that didn't give up. Because the UIR stopped fighting the COG because the COG used the Hammer of Dawn on them. And it was kind of like in World War II with the atomic bomb on the Japanese when they shot the atomic bomb and the Japanese kept going and then they shot another atomic bomb on them and then they stopped. They just gave up. They're like, okay, what? That's it. That's kind of what happened to the UIR, but with the Hammer of Dawn. They used the Hammer of Dawn on the UIR, and after the second time, I think, the UIR was like, okay, that's it. We're done. We're not gonna attack you guys anymore. And the Gasnie was one of the only places in the UIR that was like, screw that. We're not giving up. So they actually kept on fighting. But after E-Day, after the locusts and all that, they just like, nobody knew what happened to them. And now they show up, the Gasnie, their old enemy. The commander of the Gasnie is Miran Trescu. And Trescu is in Gears of War 3. If you guys remember, towards the end, he's on one of the helicopters. He said, this is Trescu. And I was like, oh my god, it's Trescu! It's pretty cool. Trescu is a pretty awesome character. So he's like, this is the submarine Zephyr, and we're Gasnie. I'm Miran Trescu. And they're like, Gasnie, are you freaking kidding me? And there's just like maybe, I forgot how many Gasnie are left, maybe like 5,000, I think. So they're dwindling to the brink, to the point where they're so desperate that they will join the COG. They're like, you know what, we're going to just die out here. If we don't have the protection of the COG, we're just going to, there's going to be no Gasnie soon. So once they sit down and talk, all the heads of the COG and Trescu, Prescott, Hoffman, and Michelson, when they sit down and talk to see what they want, Trescu from the Indy, he's like, we want your guys' protection. We want to be able to stay here on Vectis too. And Hoffman's like, are you freaking kidding me? He's like, we were barely able to move in ourselves. You think they're gonna let the enemy in, or the old enemy? And Trescu's like, what could we do? I mean, we're gonna freaking die out there. He's like, I wouldn't do this if we weren't desperate. Prescott is like, we'll let you be here if you join the COG. If you're not gonna be Indies anymore. You're not gonna be from the UIR. You're gonna be COG. And they found out that they have a emulsion, like an emulsion, huge, like a rig, or I don't know what they're called, but where you get, where it's like this station out in the ocean that pumps up emulsion, the like oil kind of. Prescott is like, we want that. We want to be able to get emulsion from there, from you guys, because that's fuel, right? And they were running low on fuel, and now they've got this huge emulsion plant that's Gasnie. But I mean, if they join them, they get emulsion out of it. So Trescu's like, fine. And now the Gasnie are part of the COG, and they're all on Vectis. This is all like towards the end of the book, and they're already starting to wonder what is out in the ocean. Like the whole, when Marcus was worrying about the Leviathan, he was like, I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about that. There's got to be something out there that's just not quite right. So they're already suspecting that there's something out there. So that's how this book ends. that there's still problems with the stranded, worse problems now, because they thought that, they basically took their ship down after they gave them their word, and them suspecting that there's something out there that's not just stranded, but something that was probably left over from what happened in Jacinto. Another thing that's really a huge, huge piece of information for a lot of you guys, because a lot of people are still wondering if Anya and Marcus are ever going to get together. And it's like, dude, you guys are like way misinformed. They're already together. Like, not literally in a relationship, like, hi, this is my boyfriend Marcus. No. But they have slept together. They've been together. And I'll show you where it says this. Check it. They never actually go into it here, but this is what Anya says. You gotta be kind of stupid not to get this point. Marcus, he says, you look happier. It suits you. And then it says, these were the conversations that hurt. They were just the throwaway things that other lovers said without thinking. But they were so rare between her and Marcus that she had to treat them like fragile peace negotiations. One wrong word and the shutters would come down again. And then this is what she's thinking. 17 years. And we're still at the stage where I never know if the relationship's on or not. And when it is, I'm wondering when he'll stay the whole night. I must be insane. Bam! Yeah, so they have been together, like really together. They've slept with each other, because you can't, obviously, come on. After reading that, and who knows since when, because she says 17 years.